All right, let's dive into a story you probably think you know inside and out, the Good Samaritan. But I guarantee there's a shocking, subversive layer to this story that most of us were never taught, and it changes everything.
We all have the basic picture, right? A kind person helps someone in need. It's the definition of a good deed. But the thing is, this story doesn't start with a cry for help. It starts with a trap, a public trap set to humiliate and discredit. So, picture the scene. An expert in religious law stands up to test Jesus. Now, in this kind of honor and shame culture, this wasn't some friendly Bible study question. This was high-stakes public theater. The goal wasn't to learn something. The goal was to make Jesus stumble and embarrass him in front of everybody.
And pay close attention to the question he asks, because it's different in Luke's version of the story. In other accounts, like in Mark, the question is about the most important commandment, a classic debate topic. But here, the lawyer asks about inheriting eternal life. That just raises the stakes from a legal debate to a question about a person's ultimate destiny. It's a much deeper, more dangerous question.
So Jesus brilliantly just turns the question right back at him. He says, well, you're the expert. What does the law say? And the lawyer nails it. He gives the perfect answer. Love God with everything you've got and love your neighbor as yourself. And Jesus says, yep, that's it. Do that and you'll live. So, test over, right? Everyone can go home? Well, not quite.
See, the text tells us the lawyer wanted to justify himself. What does that mean? It means he knows, deep down, he doesn't actually do this. He doesn't love everyone, so he needs a loophole. He needs to shrink the circle of people he's actually responsible for. And he tries to do it with one seemingly innocent follow-up question.
And there it is. That's the question that kicks this whole thing into another gear. And who is my neighbor? This isn't a man searching for wisdom. This is a man searching for an excuse. He's really asking, okay, who exactly am I required to care about? And maybe more importantly, who is it okay for me to ignore? And here's the kicker. The lawyer already thought he knew the answer. The legal definition, right there in the book of Leviticus, was pretty clear. A neighbor was a fellow Israelite, one of the sons of your own people. It was a very well-defined, very exclusive club. And anyone outside that club, well, they weren't his problem. So what does Jesus do? He doesn't take the bait. He doesn't get drawn into a legal debate about definitions. Instead, he tells a story. And it's a story where every single character is strategically chosen to completely tear down the lawyer's neat and tidy worldview.
First up, a priest comes walking down this dangerous road. We're talking about a man at the very top of the religious food chain. He sees this poor guy, beaten, robbed, half dead, and he crosses to the other side of the road and keeps walking.
Okay, so next, a Levite comes along. He's another religious official, someone who assists in the temple. And he does the exact same thing. Sees the man, crosses the road, and walks on by. The two people you would expect to be the heroes of the story are total no-shows. So what is going on here?
And here's the really stunning part. The story hints that it wasn't necessarily because they were just cruel, heartless guys. No, it was actually because of their extreme piety. If that wounded man was dead, touching a corpse would make them ceremonially unclean, and that would disqualify them from doing their sacred temple duties. In other words, their religious rules gave them the perfect excuse to do nothing.
And then Jesus drops the bombshell. The hero of the story finally arrives. It's not another Jew, not a respected leader. It's a Samaritan. And to the lawyer listening to this, that would have been absolutely jaw-droppingly offensive. We have to understand just how scandalous this was. Samaritans were the ultimate enemy. Religiously, they were seen as heretics with their own counterfeit temple. Socially, they were despised outcasts. They were considered permanently unclean. And historically, they were bitter rivals of the Jews. Making a Samaritan the moral hero of a story, that's like telling a story to a general and making an enemy soldier the hero. It was designed to provoke. So after he finishes the story, Jesus turns back to this lawyer who tried to trap him, and now Jesus sets his own brilliant trap of logic. Just look at this incredible flip. The lawyer asked, "Who is my neighbor?" It's a theoretical question about who fits the definition. Jesus completely reframes it. He asks, which of these three was a neighbor to the man? He changes the entire conversation from who was worthy of my help to what does it actually look like to be a helper? And the lawyer is totally caught. He can't escape the logic of the story. He has to answer. And his answer is, the one who showed him mercy.
But listen to what he doesn't say. This is so telling. His prejudice runs so deep that he cannot even bring himself to say the word Samaritan. He can't give the outcast he despises the dignity of being named, even while admitting that he was the hero of the story. That silence just speaks volumes.
And with the lawyer trapped by his own admission, Jesus delivers the final, devastating command. And it's not just a nice moral to wrap up the story. It's a direct, personal challenge to the lawyer's entire way of life.
Jesus just looks at him and says, "Go and do likewise." Think about what he's saying. He's telling this expert in Jewish law, you want to inherit eternal life? Go and be like the Samaritan. Take that religious heretic, that social outcast, the person you hate the most, and make him your role model for what it means to truly love.
And what did that model of love look like? I mean, it was radical. The Samaritan saw the man and felt compassion. He used his own supplies, his own wine and oil to clean the wounds. He put the man on his own animal. He paid out of his own pocket for a room at an inn. And then he promised to come back and cover any extra costs. This wasn't a small act of charity. This was total, costly, sacrificial love for a complete stranger who was probably his enemy.
So in the end, the parable doesn't answer the lawyer's original question at all. It obliterates it. The point was never to make a neat little list of who deserves our help. The real challenge of the story is for us to stop asking, "Who is my neighbor?" and to start asking a much bigger, much more dangerous question. Whose neighbor am I going to be?